Come on, have some more wine. My husband and I had come to a secluded rental villa for our honeymoon. We were alone, taking our time and celebrating with some nice wine. However, after only 2 glasses of wine, I felt strangely tipsy today, and the room started to spin. Already drunk? You're hopeless. After drinking the water my husband handed me, I was suddenly overcome with sleepiness. Maybe I've been busy and tired lately. But when I glanced at my husband, instead of looking worried, he seemed to be smiling for some reason. Then, I remembered a note from a stranger that had been handed to me. It said, "Run away, now." My name is Mary, and I'm 27. We had our wedding 6 months ago and finally went on a slightly delayed honeymoon. I met my husband, William, 3 years ago in a cooking class. He's 12 years older, but we get along great and share the same taste in food. We also both lost our parents at an early age, so it was natural for our relationship to deepen and lead to marriage. Though we had our wedding, our work was so busy that we could only take a 1-week break. So, we looked for a place where we could relax and choose a natural, serene location for our honeymoon. The rental villa where we were staying was just over 3 hours by car from home. On the way, we stopped at a restaurant for food, as I was getting hungry. From here, the villa is about 2 more hours away. I had felt like someone was watching me since we entered the restaurant. After finishing our meal, a waitress handed me a small note as I stood to go to the restroom. On the paper from the unknown woman, it read, "Escape now without being noticed." I tried to ask what it meant, but the waitress had already disappeared into the back of the restaurant. I didn't see her face, so I don't know who handed it to me. I thought it might be a cruel prank, but when I entered the stall and looked at the note again, there were digits that seemed to be a phone number. What on earth is going on? The excitement of our honeymoon suddenly gave way to an uneasy feeling. Who was that woman earlier? Driven by a desire to find the woman and inquire about this note, I heard voices from outside the restroom. "Hey Mary, are you okay? Feeling sick?" "No, nothing's wrong. I'll be out soon. Just wait at the table." My husband, worried by my delay, called out to me, but I lied on the spot. And then, unsure of whether or not to show my husband the note, I stuffed it deep into my pocket. Our long-awaited honeymoon, which had been filled with joy and excitement, suddenly became clouded with uncertainty. I felt I mustn't let my husband sense my inner turmoil, so I acted more cheerful and lively than usual as we left the restaurant. Next, we stopped at a supermarket to buy food and drinks, and arrived at a remote rental villa 2 hours later. As we relaxed, walking together and enjoying our leisure time, I began to forget about the note. By evening, we decided to make our favorite dishes. I made his favorite hamburger steak. He made mashed potatoes. We savored our meal across the table, toasting with wine and enjoying lively conversation, feeling so happy. And yet, after 2 glasses of wine, my head started to feel foggy. "I bought your favorite premium wine, Mary. Drink up." I might be getting a little tipsy." "What are you talking about? You've hardly drunk anything." My husband offered me more wine. I thought about stopping, but looking at my cheerful husband, I didn't want to ruin the pleasant atmosphere, so I sipped the wine little by little. However, after a while, I started to feel even dizzier and felt as though I was becoming quite drunk. Feeling that any more would make me sick, I pulled my hand away from the wine glass. Then my husband stared intently at my face, checking my complexion. "You usually handle a whole bottle of wine fine. Is your daily fatigue catching up with you?" "Maybe it is." "You're such a helpless one. If so, drink this. It'll sober you up. Here." With that, he handed me the hangover supplement he usually takes, along with some water. Yet, even after drinking it, my drunkenness didn't subside, and I was strangely overcome with intense drowsiness. Finally, I was in such a state that I could barely sit in my chair, leaning on the table. "It's surprisingly easy." Opening my eyes slightly at those words, my husband, instead of looking concerned, had an eerie smile on his face. "You might just slip into an eternal sleep. Thanks for getting life insurance." And then, without caring for me as I lay limp and unable to get up, my husband poured all the wine down the sink, tidied up his dishes and glasses, and left the rental villa. What on earth is happening? Unable to move at all, I heard the sound of a car engine gradually fading away. Could it be the note that the waiter gave me? I realized the written words, "Run away now," might have been anticipating this situation. The last words my husband said echoed in my mind. "Thanks for getting life insurance." Just thinking about the meaning of these words sends a chill down my spine, with terrifying thoughts popping up one after the other. By the way, it was him who first brought up getting insurance. Within a week of our marriage, my husband strongly urged us to take out life insurance together. When I hesitated, feeling something was off, he said, looking sad, "Life insurance is like a charm for us, in case something happens. Since both of us have lost our parents, I thought it'd save us from hardship if something went wrong." I was convinced at the time, but now, could it be that he's been targeting this all along? With great effort, I crawled to the kitchen and chugged down an unopened bottle of water. My mind started to clear a bit, and I took out the note I had received and pressed the call button on my mobile phone. After a few rings, a woman answered, and when I told her I had received the note and was incoherent from the wine, she responded with urgency. "That's why I gave you the note, saying run away now. You might be in danger." "What? What do you mean? Please tell me what you know." According to what she hesitantly told me, she was my husband's ex-girlfriend. Apparently, they were dating about 5 years ago when his parents died from an illness. His behavior was so suspicious that she became frightened and decided to break up. However, she couldn't get rid of him, so she vanished. I was stunned to hear her story. I had heard that his parents died more than 10 years ago in a traffic accident. What's going on here? So, when we entered the restaurant, she was incredibly surprised. She hid in the back of the shop, so we wouldn't see her. I wasn't imagining the feeling that someone was watching me during dinner. The waitress must have sensed that my husband was up to something and handed me a note when I went to the restroom, wanting to help with all her heart. "Thank you for giving me the note. I can't thank you enough. It must have taken courage." I heard her sobbing on the phone at my words. I can't believe this. I can never forgive this. Contrary to my gratitude to her, I was terribly shocked to find that my trusting husband had betrayed me. Gradually, I became consumed with anger. I have to punish that man no matter what. Without thinking, I asked the waitress for help, and she said, "Of course," but I had a plan at that time. But carrying it out might put me in even more danger. Still, I couldn't just let things go on like this. I was determined to make him realize his wrongs. About 2 hours later, I heard the sound of my husband's car engine returning. After the phone call, I had fallen ill again and was lying on the floor. I could see my husband, still wearing his shoes, entering through the door. He slowly approached me, crouched down in front of me, and gently put his ear to my lips to check my breathing. Damn, she's still alive. She's stubborn. I should have made her drink more. What does that mean? I faintly whispered, and he began to speak with a defiant smile. I'll tell you as a gift to the dead. You know, I hate working. So I made my parents drink plenty of alcohol to quickly get my hands on some money. And then I made them drink the supplement I made and gave to you. Huh? I married you because you had no one else, and now the life insurance money will be all mine. Since the premium is $500 a month, I might get around $500,000. I'm thrilled. I felt a chill as my husband's cruel words sank in. You won't have your way. Don't act tough. You can't even move. I'll take all your savings, too. Now, I'll send you to the afterlife right away with this. My husband then took out several of the supplements from earlier, and now it sounded like he was dissolving them in water, with the noise of a glass and stirring. He grabbed my hair, lifted my face, and poured the mixture into my mouth. Stop it. Come on, gulp it down. I won't hold back this time. You'll be in the afterlife in no time. I resisted desperately, coughing and somehow spitting out the liquid that had been forcibly poured into my mouth. That's enough. Let go of Mary. Standing there was the store clerk, his former lover, who had handed me the note. What? Why is Emma here? I had arranged for her to come here after giving her the location of the villa on the phone earlier. My husband was shocked by the unexpected appearance. I'm sorry it didn't go your way. Seeing me stand up smoothly from the floor, my husband looked completely baffled. It's true the wine had affected me quickly, but I had felt something off when he gave me the supplements while I was drunk and made sure not to swallow them. You must have thought I'd come back here to check what had happened to me. Damn, you tricked me. I'll never forgive you. I'll wipe both of you off the face of this earth. Recklessly, he grabbed the poker next to the wood-burning stove and approached us. Stop it! Screaming won't help you here in this deserted place. Now, which one of you should I finish off first? As he said this, swinging the stick in his hand, mirrors and vases in the room were shattered to pieces. Then, just as I couldn't escape any longer, my husband stood in front of me, raising his arm to strike. At that moment, the door banged open with a loud noise and the police came in. His former lover had been watching the situation from the next room and had called the police. It was a close call indeed. That was a close one. With a shocked look on his face, my husband's arm remained raised, frozen in place. I took the opportunity to turn off the recording button on the mobile phone I had propped on the shelf and handed it to the police. I've recorded everything in here. This should be enough evidence, right? Oh, and the supplement I pretended to drink, I'll give that as evidence too. What? What's going on? Actually, I had called the police after my husband had abandoned me, but they didn't take me seriously because I was slurring my words, thinking it was a drunk's joke. That's why, with the cooperation of his former lover, I staged a convincing act to elicit a confession from my husband. Honestly, I was terrified of my husband and thought about running away right then and there. But I knew that if I ran, my husband would target me, and I believed that the police would surely come if they had evidence of a crime in progress. This is just a little marital spat, not something to bother the busy police with. He tossed the stick he was holding onto the floor and began to scratch his head. I'm fed up with him thinking he can still deceive us with all this evidence stacked up against him. You might as well give up. We have your own confession and the video evidence of you trying to take our lives. Mary, you're exaggerating. Calling the police is going too far. I'll apologize, so don't be mad. I wouldn't really harm you, would I? There's no way I can believe you now. Besides, I will have everything investigated thoroughly. Not only about this incident, but also the death of your parents. But that's such an old story, and there's no evidence. He seems to think that he won't be charged with a serious crime if he's caught just for this incident. Then, the ex-lover, who had been silently observing, spoke up. I'm not sure if this will be helpful, but I have stored everything he said at that time and anything that seems to be evidence. Really? No way. I don't want to waste my life over something like this. My husband tried to escape, but he was quickly caught by the police, handcuffed, and taken away in a patrol car. He shouldn't be able to get out of detention for a while. Watching the patrol car get smaller, I felt a release from anxiety. Emma, are you hurt? I'm fine, but I was scared. We don't know what would have happened to us if the police had arrived a few minutes later. I knew my life was in danger, but it was all to expose this man's deeds. Thank you for giving me the note courageously. If it weren't for Emma, I don't know what would have happened to me. I owe you my life. No, I think it was resolved because you believed in me, and Mary acted without considering her own danger. I'm just glad you're safe. This should ease the pain of losing my in-laws. But it was indeed a terrifying experience. Afterward, we couldn't stop trembling for a while. Soon, my husband's attempt on my life and his taking of his parents' lives will be exposed. Of course, I'm divorcing him and canceling my expensive life insurance policy. Now, all I have to do is wait for him to be judged. I'm scared, but I'm truly relieved that such a terrible person was not left at large. I'm hoping to find someone I can be with for life without learning from this. Please be careful with men who try to sell you life insurance.
Christopher, you're a disgrace to this family. Leave. You're not wanted here. Those harsh words came from my dad at my brother Alex's wedding, in front of a room full of people, and Alex didn't stand up for me. I was about to leave, boiling with anger, when... Please help us! We need you! A wedding staff member came asking for help in a moment of crisis. This turned out to be the moment when my dad finally realized who I really was and got quite a surprise. My name is Christopher, and I'm one of two brothers. Our dad, a lawyer, was always tough on Alex and me. Growing up, we had no free time. Between lessons and studying, even playing with friends wasn't allowed. I worked hard to live up to Dad's expectations and to catch up to my brother Alex, who I deeply admired. But no matter how hard I tried, I always felt inferior to Alex and disappointed my dad. The first significant event in my life was taking the entrance exam for a prestigious private school. Knowing it was a long shot, I still tried to get into the school Dad wanted. The result was inevitable. I failed. After that, Dad pretty much ignored me, only speaking to Alex and my mom. So I ended up going to a local public high school. For those 3 years, I constantly felt stressed. Dad continued to ignore me, and so did Alex, which was heartbreaking. "You okay?" My only solace was my mom. She continued to treat me the same way as always. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'll find my own path." And so, right after high school, I left home, without saying a word to Dad or Alex. I only left a note for my mom. I was desperate to leave, so I found a job where I could also live in. Luckily, I found a job opening at a hotel. I applied right away and got the job. Ever since I started working, I've been living a fulfilling life. It's not stifling like it was at home. I get to focus on what I need to do. "Christopher, another mistake? How many times do I have to tell you?" "I'm sorry, I'll fix it right away." "Get it together, Christopher." Michael, the hotel manager, is really tough. I was just a high school graduate, so it's not like I knew anything about the real world. I was always getting scolded. Still, I worked hard every day. But it was a different kind of tough from Dad. Michael actually praised me when I did well, which motivated me to do better. Something memorable happened at the start of the new year. New Year's is the busiest time for the hotel. After completing all the required training, I was finally able to work on my own. That year, it seemed the hotel was more crowded than usual, and the busiest time? Dinner. Guests either gather in a big room to eat, or meals have to be delivered to their rooms, so it's insanely hectic. I was finally able to work by myself, but I was still a rookie, and I knew I was causing the hotel some trouble. Still, I gave it my all. Then, a minor event happened. On New Year's Day, a coworker got the flu, leaving us short-staffed. I worked my tail off. I probably put in twice the hours mandated by state labor laws. Just when you'd think it couldn't get worse, it did. The kitchen sink's pipe broke, right during dinner time. And of course, it's New Year's Day, so no plumber is coming. What a mess! We're stuck! The mood of our manager, Michael, kept getting worse. I took a bold step and said, "Michael, can I try fixing the plumbing? I'll sort it out." Michael and the others looked puzzled, but he had no choice. With a hopeful tone, he asked, "Christopher, can you do it?" Then I got to work on the plumbing. Actually, I had gone to a science-focused high school after failing to get into a private one. There, I gained specialized knowledge in engineering and hands-on experience. Half an hour later, I had somehow managed to fix the pipe. "Michael, it's fixed!" Michael rushed over and turned the faucet. Water flowed out with force. Everyone in the room smiled. "Great job, Christopher! You're my pride and joy." Being raised by Michael felt amazing. We managed to get through the New Year's Day at our hotel. I'll never forget the fulfillment I felt that day. It's fair to say it has shaped who I am today. 15 years have passed since, and I fully adapted to this job. One day, I got a letter from Ma'am after a long time. Turns out, Alex is getting married. I keep in touch with Mom a few times a year, but haven't been in contact with Dad or Alex. The letter asked for me to attend Alex's wedding. Why should I go? That was the feeling bubbling up inside me. So I wrote back to Mom. I can't attend. Yet a letter from Mom came right back, begging me to somehow make it. I reluctantly agreed to go. The location was a top-notch luxury hotel. Alex's bride is a young woman from a prestigious company, and the guest list outnumbers those at my work's New Year's celebration. It's quite lavish. I thought it was Alex and Dad's style. The meeting with Alex's bride was probably arranged at a party by Dad, or was some kind of political marriage. On the day, I wore a suit I've had for a few years, and headed to the venue. I gave my name at the reception and was guided to the waiting room. There were already quite a few people. All looked like high society folks. Must be Alex's bride. The woman with long, beautiful hair in the back. With no one to talk to, I was people watching when I locked eyes with two men. I recognized their faces. His face was clearly unhappy. Two men, Dad and Alex, walked up to me. "Why are you here?" I heard Dad's deep voice. It's been years since I've heard his voice. Is it so wrong to celebrate Alex's wedding? Oh, by the way, congrats, Alex. I said that, and Alex made a conflicted face. He probably can't openly appreciate my congratulations in front of Dad. What have you been up to all these years? No doubt some worthless job. Christopher, you shouldn't be here. As Dad said this, Mom rushed over to us. Come on, Christopher is here to celebrate. No need to be so harsh. Mom was desperate to persuade Dad, but her voice was drowned out by Dad's. Enough, Mom! Christopher, let me make this clear. You're a disgrace. I don't want you ruining Alex's celebration. Get out! Even I felt a surge of anger. I didn't want to come to Alex's wedding in the first place, and yet I get treated like this. That's why I didn't want to come. Fine, I'm leaving, okay? Mom, this is why I didn't want to be here. To see this terrible dad. And turned my back to exit the waiting room. I picked up my belongings and was about to step outside. Please wait! I heard someone call out and turned around. A wedding staff member from the hotel was rushing over. What's up? It seems we have an unexpected guest for today's wedding. We're short on seats and food. Everyone in the waiting room looks worried. Emily, the planner, and the parents-in-law staff. I see. Is that what's going on? Emily can't handle it alone, and they're asking for my help. But what does this have to do with me? Reflect on your past actions. Serves them right. All my grievances against Dad and Alex are bubbling up. But then, memories from the past fill my mind, of times when Alex and I used to play. Alex always made time to play with me during study breaks. Right if I just walked away, I'll be no different from Dad. I turned back to the wedding staff. Can you take me to Emily? The staff member's face relaxed. I quickly followed them back into the waiting room. I returned to the very place I was kicked out of. In the center of the room, Emily, my dad, and the bride's father all wore worried expressions. As I got closer, my eyes met Dad's. Why has Christopher returned? Leave! Dad approached me with a furious look, but Emily got to me first. General Manager, please help us! Dad's eyes widened in shock. You see, I'm now the general manager for all the hotels that my current company manages. When I first joined, we had just started expanding. Now we have hotels and wedding venues all over the country. And this hotel we're in right now, it's one of the hotels I oversee. I think I can handle this. I calmly explained the situation. Dad, I'm busy right now. We'll talk later. Saying this, I turned back to Emily. Relax, Emily. Get the seats and everything else ready. I'll take care of the food. The stress fades from Emily's face. Understood. I'll leave the food to the general manager and handle the rest. With that, Emily rushes off. All right, it's my turn now. Everyone in the waiting room is watching me. I leave the room and head to my friend, Chef Jackson. This hotel has a high-end restaurant, and Jackson, the chef, is a good friend of mine. Hey, you in? After some rustling, Jackson appears. Christopher, what brings you here? Work? I'm here as a guest today. My brother's wedding is happening here, but we're one meal short. Can you help? Sure thing. I'll whip something up with my culinary skills. Much appreciated. I owe you dinner. Looking forward to it. I return to the waiting room after taking care of a few things. The guests have already moved to the ceremony area. Only my parents and the bride's parents are left. The issue is resolved. We've got an extra meal coming. Upon hearing this, my mom and the bride's parents looked relieved. My dad looked conflicted. Quite the proud man he is. Christopher, thank you so much. Because of you, the celebration can go on successfully. It's all in a day's work as a general manager. And with that, we all enter the ceremony hall. The lights dim and the groom and bride enter. Alex looks incredibly handsome and his bride is stunning. The ceremony proceeds, and then it's mealtime. I confirm that everyone is served and breathe a sigh of relief. The ceremony concludes successfully. The faces of the groom and bride are filled with happiness. After the ceremony, we had a little talk with Alex's family and the bride's family. The topic was gratitude towards me, especially from the bride's family. I was thanked profusely. These moments are why I love my job. Christopher, thank you so much. We had the best day ever, all thanks to you. No worries. Wishing you all the happiness in the world. Thank you so much. I look at Dad and Alex. Both of them have complicated expressions. Mom walks over to me. Christopher, you did wonderfully. Thank you. Dad and Alex want to speak to you. I look back at Dad and Alex. Alex apologizes first. Christopher, you saved us. Thank you. And sorry for everything up to now. As long as I could help Alex, it's all good. Then Dad lowers his head without saying a word. He seemed to have nothing to say. That's fine with me. After all, I never became like Dad. Just then, my cell phone buzzed in my pocket. It was the manager from a hotel in the next town over. Looks like more work. But hey, I enjoy it, so no complaints. Alright, I'm off. Got work to do. You two take care. I probably won't see Alex or Dad again. I left the room without looking back and headed to work. 3 days after Alex's wedding, I was enjoying a rare day off. Sitting on the sofa, sipping warm coffee, that was my happy time. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? I wondered as I went to the door. Alex was there. Surprised, I opened the door. Alex? What brings you here? Sorry, I got your address from Mom. Wanted to talk to you, Christopher. He wants to talk to me? Maybe he came to say thanks again. Well, you want to come in? Pardon the mess. If it's okay with you, Christopher, I'd like that. Alex gave a forced smile. I invited Alex in and served him coffee. Thank you. Smells good. Alex took a slow sip of his coffee. Seems like we both enjoy coffee. So, what did you want to talk about, Alex? Alex put down his coffee cup and looked me straight in the eye. The next moment, he apologized. I'm really sorry for everything. I was puzzled. He came all this way to say that? A phone call would have sufficed. Hey, it's alright, Alex. Alex looked up. Actually, I came today because I want to share some things with you, Christopher. If you don't mind, I'd like you to hear my grievances. Grievances? I was left speechless. Alex began to speak slowly. You might think I'm the older brother who can do anything, but I envy you, Christopher. You're free from Dad's pressures, living your own life, away from our parents. I couldn't say a word. Alex felt that way? I had no idea you felt that way, Alex. Silence filled the room for a moment. I felt somewhat guilty. After all, I had unintentionally shifted all of Dad's expectations onto Alex. Choosing my words carefully, I spoke. Alex, I'm sorry. I never considered that you were struggling too. My brother smiled weakly. That's just it. It's not your fault, Christopher. I was the weak one. Hearing that, I finally found my words. Alex, I think you've been through struggles I can't even imagine. I truly admire that, but I also want you to know about me. Taking a deep breath, I paused. I needed to collect my thoughts. Alex listened intently to my words, not saying anything. Breaking away from my parents and becoming independent wasn't easy either. The beginning was really tough. Yeah, it's true. We both have our share of hardships. Alex responded. It seemed Alex had more to say. I don't consider myself wise enough to convince Alex, nor do I know the words to do so. So I said what I honestly felt to my esteemed Alex. To be honest, I think you should do what you really want to do, Alex, without worrying about Dad. After pondering my words, Alex stood up, a relieved look on his face. You're right, Christopher. You've helped clear up my inner turmoil. Thank you. No, thank you, Alex, for coming over. I escorted Alex to the door. I'll come by for coffee again, he said, and left. A natural smile appeared on his face. A month later, a letter arrived from Alex. He had been a lawyer to meet Dad's expectations, but decided to quit and start training as a glass craftsman. Turns out he met his girlfriend at a glass workshop he had been attending as a hobby. I'm sorry, Alex, for ever doubting you. As expected of Alex, seems he's been disowned by Dad, but Alex's wife is supportive, and he's full of motivation. Dad remains the same, but I know Alex will pull through. Since then, our families started interacting more. There really is something special about the bond between siblings. As I was lost in thought, my mobile phone's alarm went off. Whoa, it's already this time? I have to leave the house. Today, another day awaits on the path I chose, in the job I chose.
Ugh, I've had enough. I was at my wit's end, standing in front of my husband and in-laws. It was a day we were supposed to go on a trip to Hawaii. And my mother-in-law had just told me, "I don't remember inviting you." Carter, my husband, just gave me a look that said he wanted to get through this awkward moment as quickly as possible, offering no help. I was done with these people. My name is Rita Rollins. I'm 28 years old. Before getting married, I worked as a bartender. I've always loved drinks, and right after graduating from college, I got a job at a privately owned bar. That's where I met Carter, who had been a regular there even before I started working. I heard from the owner that he was a quiet guy, but he started talking to me more after my second shift. We were the same age, hit it off, and eventually our relationship turned romantic. We got married 6 months ago. Until I married Carter, I had never moved out of my parents' home. There were 2 reasons for that. First, my workplace was very close to my home. Second, my dad was extremely protective of me. I lost my mom to illness, and being an only child, I was always the apple of my dad's eye. But he didn't just spoil me. He knew when to be strict. My dad is a wealthy businessman, so I've never had to worry about money. I was able to go to college thanks to his financial support. I don't know all the details, but he seems to be involved in managing several companies. He cried so much at my wedding that the staff had to caution him. But he trusted Carter and sent me off as a bride. So I finally moved out and started my life with Carter. But reality was different from what I had dreamed. It all started when my mother-in-law began visiting our home. After marrying Carter, I quit my job and became a homemaker. Carter works as a driver for a small transportation company. He leaves early in the morning and comes home late at night, so I had a lot of free time. That's when my mother-in-law started to meddle in my life. One day, after seeing Carter off and doing some laundry, the doorbell rang. I checked the monitor and saw it was her. "Hello?" "Oh, has Carter gone to work?" "Yes, he just left." "I brought these cupcakes that Carter loves. Could you give them to him?" "Thanks for your kindness. We'll enjoy them later." I thought my response was perfectly polite, but she suddenly frowned and said, "What are you talking about? There's none for you. I made these for Carter." Her words were so cold and pointed that they hurt me a bit. Seeing me look down, she said, "Don't be so sensitive. Just let me in already," and pushed past me into the house. Leaving me stunned, she headed straight for the living room. I hurriedly followed her. "By the way, there's something I want to talk to you about." As soon as she sat on the sofa, she said it. I had no idea what she was talking about, so I just waited for her to continue. "When am I going to see my first grandchild?" "What? We don't have plans for that anytime soon." "What do you mean, no plans? You're worthless as a wife then." My mother-in-law's unexpected visit was filled with nothing but derogatory comments towards me. Carter and I had decided to wait until we were 30 to have kids. We're not financially stable yet, and we don't want to bring a child into a world where they'd struggle. But my mother-in-law dismissed our plans, saying I had no value. Isn't that our choice to make? She didn't expect me to talk back. She furrowed her brows and yelled, "How dare you defy me? A wife who can't even give me grandchildren." "I never said I can't have children. I said the timing isn't right." A woman who can't give birth when I want her to is as worthless as one who can't give birth at all. I felt irritated by her words and fired back, but she didn't stop. Enough! This is pointless. With that, she left. That night, Carter looked at me apologetically and said, "Hey, Rita, we should have a kid." "Did your mom say something to you?" I immediately suspected that the events of the day had something to do with this impressed Carter. But he remained silent, looking down. "Tell me the truth. Your mom said something, didn't she?" "Well, it's both. Dad yelled at me to get you pregnant already. Probably Mom's idea. Dad has always been under Mom's thumb." I felt my spirits sink. Carter is kind to me, but he lacks assertiveness. I knew he wasn't confrontational, but he never complains even when things are against him. Now I was sure. It's not that he won't say anything. He can't. "I'm going to your parents' house tomorrow. Our home and my in-laws are just a 20-minute drive apart. I could go there any time." "But what if we just have a kid like they want? Wouldn't that calm them down?" I was infuriated by Carter's weak response. "Do you really want to have a child now? Have you forgotten that we agreed to wait until we saved some money?" "Well, can't we just ask your dad for money? He's really wealthy, right?" I sighed deeply and stopped preparing dinner. Then I looked at Carter and said, "Don't you find that embarrassing? If we have a child, we're the parents. How do you plan to raise a child when we can't even manage our own finances?" When I said this assertively, Carter deflated and mumbled, "Sorry," ending the conversation. I've always been strong-willed, even handling customer complaints when I was a bartender. Carter, despite being an athlete, is weak-willed. He may look muscular and strong, but he has a fragile heart, a disappointing balance. The next day, as promised, I visited my in-laws. The person who opened the door was my mother-in-law. "Oh, what brings you here all of a sudden? It's rare for you to visit. Come in." She treated me with unexpected courtesy. Walking into the living room, I saw my father-in-law scrutinizing a pile of brochures on the table. "Mother-in-law, about yesterday. It's about having kids." I'd like to get straight to the point, so I tried to steer the conversation that way. But father-in-law interrupted me. "Rita, if we go on vacation for Christmas, would you prefer Hawaii or Florida?" I was speechless, not understanding the sudden change in topic. Father-in-law's tone hardened. "Can't you even answer a simple question?" "My dear, it's okay. Rita is a worthless person after all." Father-in-law yelled, and mother-in-law made a condescending comment. I felt my anger rising. But I decided to hold back, not wanting to stoop to their level. "I'd choose Hawaii. Crossing the ocean makes it feel more like a vacation." "All right, let's go with Hawaii then." "By the way, why Hawaii?" "We got a bonus, and we want to go to a seaside destination with Carter." I couldn't reconcile this with father-in-law, with the man who had been pressuring me to have children through Carter. I had assumed it would be a trip for just mother-in-law and father-in-law, but apparently I was wrong. But I would realize my mistake much later. Father-in-law seemed in high spirits now that the vacation spot was decided. I lost the urge to bring up yesterday's issues and ruin his mood, so I decided to leave quietly. But mother-in-law stopped me. "What is it?" "I thought you should have this." She handed me a folded letter-sized paper. When I opened it, It was filled with names. Frederick, Dylan, Jerry, Oliver. What is this? It's a list of names for our grandchild. Pick one when the baby is born. What? I couldn't help but shout. Yesterday, she was berating me for not having kids, and today she's handing me a list of names for a child we haven't even planned yet? And upon closer inspection, there were no names that seemed suitable for a girl. Do you plan to give me a list for girls too? Mother-in-law looked at me as if I was absurd. What are you talking about? We only want a boy. We can't let the Rollins lineage die out. That list is based on the assumption you'll have a boy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What could I possibly say to that? Her way of thinking was so outlandish that I started to question my own sanity. For the first time in my life, I had met someone with such a different sense of common decency. Look, I have many questions, but let's stick to one due to time constraints. What if a girl is born? My voice trembled slightly with suppressed anger. I felt like lunging at mother-in-law right then and there. That's simple. We just won't acknowledge her as our grandchild. If a girl is born, still name her from this list. If you don't like that, then do your best to have a boy. Mother-in-law said this with a mocking smile. Meanwhile, father-in-law was engrossed in online shopping, probably looking for things to take to Hawaii. I caught a glimpse of swimsuit images on his screen. Suddenly, I felt a headache coming on and left my in-laws' house. When I got home, I told Carter about today's events. He just hummed. Not offering much in response. Shouldn't we focus on preparing for Hawaii first? When did they say we were going? You know, I started to speak but stopped myself. Arguing now wouldn't solve anything with Carter. It made more sense to prepare for the upcoming trip. We were leaving this weekend. During the Christmas break, and Carter also had time off from work. We don't have time to buy new stuff. Come to think of it, we don't even have a suitcase. My dad has some. I'll borrow them tomorrow. My dad loves to travel and has several suitcases. Borrowing a couple wouldn't be a big deal. I contacted him on my phone and arranged to pick them up the next day. On the day of the trip, having successfully borrowed the suitcases, Carter and I headed to the meeting point mentioned in a message from mother-in-law to Carter. When we arrived, my in-laws were already there. Sorry to keep you waiting. I apologized as soon as we got there. But my in-laws looked at me strangely. Honey, did you invite Rita? No. What's going on with the both of you? Like Carter, I was clueless about what was happening. Then mother-in-law said with a feigned, innocent expression, We don't remember inviting Rita. Time seemed to freeze for Carter and me. What do you mean? You said with Carter, didn't you? Mother-in-law laughed loudly. That meant with our parents, too. This isn't the only meeting point. You can't be serious. Of course, we wouldn't invite a useless daughter-in-law. Carter, here's your ticket. Mother-in-law handed the plane ticket to Carter right in front of me. I felt a chilling humiliation, as if I'd been deliberately excluded. It was a huge insult. They must have intentionally misled me, as evidenced by their creepy smiles. When I glanced at Carter, he just looked down, avoiding eye contact. So he won't even help me now. At that moment, I lost all interest in dealing with these people, including Carter, even if I had gone on the trip. It would never have been a meaningful experience. Fine, whatever, I said, dragging my suitcase filled with pointless hopes and excitement away from the scene. I returned home, unpacked the suitcases, and headed straight to my parents' house. I thought I'd tell them what happened today while returning the unused suitcases. When I arrived, my overprotective dad greeted me with a hug. I found his boyfriend-like hugs a bit annoying, but I was also grateful for his affection. "Did you enjoy your trip to Hawaii?" he asked with sparkling eyes. He probably wished he could have gone with me, but I shattered that expectation. I didn't go because I'm the daughter-in-law. Confused, my dad asked, "What do you mean?" As to answer his question, I recounted everything that had happened up to today. "That's terrible, especially on Carter's part. A husband's job is to protect his wife, even if the opponents are his own parents. I had to stand up to my in-laws who opposed our marriage, and that's how I got to marry your mom," my dad said. He's a cheerful guy who mixes humor into his conversations, making them enjoyable. But his eyes weren't laughing this time. "Is Carter's dad's name Fred Rollins, and he works at New Wave Corporation, right?" I didn't know why he was asking, but I nodded because he was correct. "Just leave the rest to Daddy," he said with a smile, ending the conversation. The day Carter and his parents were supposed to return from Hawaii arrived. I was summoned by my dad, and we headed to the airport together. We waited in the arrival lobby for Carter and his parents. 30 minutes later, they emerged, talking and laughing. My dad immediately approached the trio. I hurriedly followed. Carter was the first to notice my dad. He stopped dead in his tracks, looking as if he'd seen a ghost. His parents noticed his reaction. Just as mother-in-law asked Carter, "What's wrong?" My dad spoke up. "Hello, I'm Rita's father." The three reacted nervously to his words. Hello," father-in-law responded with his tone much weaker than when he had spoken to me. "Do you know why I'm here?" The aura my dad emitted was intense. He's built a massive fortune over the years and knows how to control a conversation. The three seemed to know what this was about. They looked down, trying to avoid the issue. My dad took a step closer and said, "I heard my daughter was excluded from the Hawaii trip. Is that correct?" Well... "Carter, didn't I tell you to take good care of my daughter when you asked for her hand in marriage? You've betrayed that trust, haven't you?" Carter glanced at my dad's face for a moment, then quickly looked away, mumbling, "I'm sorry." But my dad didn't let that go. "Apologizing means you've done something wrong, doesn't it, Mr. Rollins?" Both Carter and mother-in-law were at a loss for words. Though the airport was bustling, our corner felt like a different world. Thanks to my dad steering us to a less crowded area, no one was paying us much attention. "Mr. Rollins, let me make one thing clear. If you don't honestly tell me what happened, I won't forgive you." On the defensive, Carter and his parents finally had father-in-law speak up, perhaps to save face. "What do you mean, won't forgive? What are you planning to do?" "I'll shut down your workplace." "Haha, what a joke." Father-in-law started laughing but trailed off as he met my dad's serious gaze. "You work at New Wave Corporation, right? The bank recently approached me about providing funding and management reforms for New Wave. If I decide it's not worth saving, the bank wants to pull its funding before the debt grows any further. I was considering helping out, given that it's the company where my daughter's father-in-law works, but it seems like it's not worth it after all." For the first time, father-in-law's eyes, which had been locked down on me, began to twitch. "You can't mix personal matters with business. You'll leave not just me, but the other employees out on the street. Father-in-law's face turned pale, but my dad was relentless. I don't mind. It's a company that is bound to fail sooner or later. Besides, my daughter is more important than employees losing their jobs. I really wanted Carter to take on this role, but it seems I misjudged him. Sorry, Rita. My intuition failed me this time. Carter looked miserable, unable to argue against the accusations. From my perspective, I felt more secure with someone like my dad who truly cared about me. Come on, both of you. Stand up for yourselves. Say something, darlings. You too, Carter. Mother-in-law was panicking, but my dad didn't let her off the hook either. Mrs. Rollins, you're also part of the problem, aren't you? Why are you trying to force Rita to have a child against her will? Let's hear your excuse. My dad glared at mother-in-law with a low, stern voice. Mother-in-law flinched, unable to respond. Have a boy? Choose a name from this list? She's worthless? Who do you think you are? Well... Mother-in-law was increasingly cornered by my dad, sweat forming on her forehead. But my dad didn't stop. If you're going to make arbitrary decisions, then so will we. First, we'll have Rita separate from Carter. What? Carter looked up shocked. The discussion with my daughter is already done. The divorce papers are filled out. Without Rita, you won't even have the chance for grandchildren. We were looking forward to seeing our grandchildren. I don't care. I won't sacrifice my daughter for your selfish desires. Even I, as her father, don't interfere in her life. You have no right to. The three of them were flustered, and no one spoke. You'll pay the price for trying to control Rita's life. Please, I love Rita. Forgive us. At the very end, Carter pleaded with my dad, but my dad merely glanced at him. That's not for me to decide. When my dad's gaze turned to me, I clearly said, please don't include me in your lives anymore. Goodbye, rejecting Carter's plea. Carter groaned, "Oh!" And mother-in-law started to cry, possibly out of shock. Father-in-law just stood there stunned. A week later, the divorce was finalized through a lawyer. My dad knows a lot of people, many of whom are lawyers or accountants, people who know the law. Thanks to one of my dad's contacts handling the divorce, I was able to receive compensation for the harassment I endured from my in-laws. My dad then told the bank that father-in-law's company wasn't worth saving. Heeding my dad's advice, the bank abandoned New Wave Corporation, which went bankrupt a month later. My dad also took action against Carter. He asked a police officer he knew to investigate my husband's company on some pretext. Turns out, small companies often engage in illegal activities, and the CEO was caught evading taxes. That company also went bankrupt due to the CEO's arrest. Mother-in-law was a homemaker, so my dad didn't do anything to her, but she's probably panicking since her husband and son both lost their jobs. I can picture her frantic state. When I happened to see mother-in-law in town, she looked frail and on the verge of collapsing. This whole experience made me realize the huge gap between the ideal and reality in married life. I was harassed by my in-laws and got no help from the husband who should have been my main support. Yet the reason I'd consider marrying again is to give back to my loving father by letting him see his grandchildren. For now, I'm on my own, but someday I hope to meet someone truly wonderful.
My name is Olivia. I'm 45 years old. I married Matthew, who's 2 years younger than me, 15 years ago. We met at a social gathering. A friend mentioned that I had recently bought a house. It must have caught Matthew's attention because he pursued me ardently despite me being older. Initially, I was skeptical, but his warm smile and kind, intelligent demeanor won me over during our one-on-one date. I had never had a serious relationship before, and I quickly fell for him. To keep him interested, I tried my best to embody the ideal woman he was looking for. Fortunately, I never disliked housework. I was used to living alone, so playing the role of a homemaker wasn't too hard. A year into our relationship, he proposed and we got married. Upon his request, I switched from a full-time job to part-time. Little did I know that my efforts to captivate him would backfire in such a way. It all started one evening when I was late coming home from work. The weather turned bad suddenly, and I rushed home, regretting that I had left laundry out to dry. If this was the case, I shouldn't have hung the laundry outside to dry. I was relieved to find Matthew was already home, seemingly having gotten off work early. Apparently, it was unusually early today. It was good. Great. The rain just started. The laundry should be fine, I thought as I entered the house. I'm home. Welcome back. Wait, why does he sound so grumpy? I saw Matthew sitting on the sofa watching TV with a pile of crumpled laundry beside him. What's the deal with the laundry? Thanks for bringing it in. Don't hang laundry outside when the weather's like this. Aren't you ashamed to make your husband do chores? What? My gratitude vanished. My husband sighed loudly. Why do you think I wanted you to switch to part-time? So you can take care of the house. You're my wife. You should be doing that. What an outdated way of thinking. And it's pouring rain outside. But back then, I was head over heels for Matthew. Plus, I was the one who tried to play the role of the perfect homemaker. I swallowed my complaints and agreed. Confused, I looked at the lucky charm my friend gave me for moments like this. Slowly, my heart calmed down. Back then, that was enough for me not to resent Matthew. A year later, our adorable daughter Ava was born. Being close to my family was a godsend for support. Matthew adored Ava. But that was it. He never really helped much with housework or childcare. Yet, Ava was very attached to him because he spoiled her. Maybe being playful is enough? Fortunately, we could live off Matthew's salary. When Ava turned 3, I put her in daycare and started a part-time job. Then, I started using my own earnings to make my life a bit easier. Matthew never interfered with how I managed the house or raised our child. Whenever he complained about the house being messy or dinner being late, I reminded myself that he was just a big kid who happened to earn money to keep my sanity. Like that, we lived as a typical family of 3, more or less happily. Then, one Saturday, after Ava had gone to her extracurricular activities, Matthew's phone rang. From what I could hear, it seemed like it was his mother. He was scratching his head while listening intently. Once he hung up, I asked, "What happened?" "Well, can my mom and dad stay with us for a while?" "Sure." Matthew explained that his parents, Chloe and Brian, needed to move in temporarily because their apartment was being demolished. "They're getting old, and it's hard for them to find another place they feel safe in. Is that okay?" I get it. I really do. But having his parents live with us, although I felt uneasy, I agreed. What can you do? I could never say no in front of Matthew. A month later, Chloe and Brian arrived with a moving truck. They hauled in a ton of stuff and started exploring our house. Eventually, commenting, "It's a bit cramped." "That's because of all your stuff." I held back my thoughts and offered a polite smile. I opened the door that connects to the living room. "This room, on the first floor is for you, Chloe and Brian. Please make yourself at home until you find a new place." "It looks like it gets chilly in here." "We have a heater, so feel free to use it." Chloe started unpacking her things, obviously dissatisfied. Meanwhile, Brian opened the fridge without asking. "Hey, Brian!"
"What? We're gonna be living here, right? What's wrong with opening my own fridge?"
"Well, you're right, but you've barely been here before. A heads up would be nice."
I drink 3 beers a day. I'll let it slide this time, but keep it stocked from now on.
All right. I knew this would happen. In more polite terms, my in-laws have an old-fashioned way of thinking. The elderly deserve respect, and men are naturally more important than women. When Ava was born, their first words were,
"The next one should be a boy."
The tricky part is that they absolutely dote on their son Matthew, and Matthew, in turn, acts like a child around them. Fortunately, we live far from my in-laws, so until now, we've only had to endure them during summer vacations and Christmas. But it's getting harder to imagine this lasting much longer. I've tried to be optimistic, thinking it would only be a few months of hardship as we transition into a new living situation. However, that optimism was about to be shattered.
"Olivia, I've been meaning to ask, is this all we're having for dinner?"
Chloe said, wearing a displeased look on her face. "Is there a problem with that?"
"Are you sure we're getting enough nutrients with so few dishes?"
"We might not have a very large variety, but I've loaded the soup with vegetable and there's also salad. It should be nutritionally balanced." "Grandma, Mom cooks dinner after coming home from work. I think this is enough." To Ava's gentle interjection, Chloe responded curtly,
"Children who know nothing shouldn't interrupt adult conversations. I'm saying this for your benefit and Matthew's, okay?" "Fair point. You do have weekends off, so you could at least prepare something in advance."
Matthew answered, and Chloe nodded in satisfaction. "I'm so tired of running errands, like buying beer and adding more blankets because the room's cold. All because I have to cater to my in-laws' whims."
"If you get it, then focus on your studies. Don't act all high and mighty until you get into college worth boasting about."
At Chloe's icy words, Ava hurriedly finishes her meal and quickly heads upstairs to her room. Seeing Ava's reaction, I can't help but sigh at Chloe, who's always complaining about bad manners. Does she really think someone can stay calm after being spoken to like that? Besides, there are people far worse than that.
"Yeah, right there. Hit it! Hit it! Run!"
Brian is munching on chicken and cheese, drinking beer, and loudly enjoying a baseball game in front of the TV. It's irritating to see Brian so excited, spitting while talking with one knee up on the couch. Ever since the in-laws came, Brian, being the eldest male, gets the most special treatment, followed by Matthew, Chloe, and then me, Ava. Sure, there's a time and place to respect the pecking order within a family, but what about Ava's feelings when her whole life gets upended because of the whims of live-in in-laws? These in-laws don't work, don't contribute to household expenses, and don't even look for a new place. When I ask them to contribute financially,
They screamed at me hysterically. "We never asked our son for money! How dare you ask us for money?" It doesn't make any sense. They're still spending money at the spa and shopping without a second thought. Both Ava and I are nearing our limit. Over the weekend, I waited until the in-laws were asleep and snuck in a conversation with Matthew. "Listen, ever since Brian and Chloe arrived, Ava's been locking herself in her room. Plus, we're spending more on groceries and utilities. This is our home. You should talk to Chloe and Brian about being more considerate." "Huh? Oh, they said they'll move out soon. Just bear with it for a little while." Matthew responds absent-mindedly, eyes glued to his mobile phone. Lately, he's been addicted to mobile games. Whenever he's free, he's on his phone. He's been working late and even going to work on weekends. The other weekend, he suddenly had to go on a business trip and left in a hurry. Are you even listening? I'm listening, I'm listening. What could be so interesting? As I lean over to take a look, Matthew abruptly stands up, hiding the screen. What are you doing? That's private. Sure, mobile phones are private. But should he be so startled just because I might see his game? What are you hiding? Nothing. If it's nothing, then show me. I'm curious about what mobile game has you so hooked. Well, it's just that, Matthew fumbles with his phone behind his back. And just then, a message alert rings out from his usually quiet phone. It seems he had taken it off silent mode without realizing. It's Friday night, 11 p.m. Who messages someone at this hour? It's not like we're teenagers anymore. Something seemed off. You got a message. Want to check it? I smiled calmly. Matthew glanced at his phone screen and gave a fake smile. It's a work thing. We should head to bed. I have to work tomorrow. On his way to the bedroom, Matthew's phone slipped out of his hand. As he quickly picked it up and skimmed the screen, the message read, Megan, looking forward to tomorrow. Love you. Panicked, I snatched his phone and confronted him. What's this about having fun at work with another woman? Who's Megan? Love you? Have you been sending her the same thing? My gut feeling was right. Matthew looked around nervously before sitting down. I'm sorry. It was just a harmless game. To put it bluntly, Matthew was cheating. His excuse about being addicted to mobile games was a total lie. Turns out, the other woman was a junior colleague, and his excuses about weekend shifts and business trips were all lies too. The unexpected betrayal left me dizzy. Here I was, balancing work, house chores, and childcare, doing my best to support Matthew. Fed up with his dismissive attitude, something in me snapped. You think it's okay because you're not serious. You're so annoying. Just then, my in-laws woke up, rubbing their sleepy eyes. What's going on? Perfect timing. Let's share what their darling son has done. Brian, Chloe, you need to hear this. I explained everything I just found out to my in-laws. Matthew sat there, shrinking like a child who just got scolded. I didn't care if they thought it was childish to tattle to my in-laws. They all should feel a bit of shame. Matthew and his parents. I finished my rant and took a deep breath. That's when Brian mumbled, seemingly uninterested. Is that all? What? You said it was a game, right? A fling or two is just men being men. If you're gonna be angry over that, you're going to have a hard time. I can't take this anymore. That's right. Chloe would understand me, I thought. I looked away from ear-picking Brian to Chloe and was flabbergasted. Unbelievably, Chloe was rubbing Matthew's back and consoling him. It's terrible that she snooped through your phone and yelled at you. She used to be such a domestic and adorable woman when she first came to greet us. Now look at her. Just an irritating wife. I'd understand if you wanted to have some fun. Mom, you get me? All I wanted was a little excitement. Matthew lifts his face, nodding in agreement. Chloe, seemingly astounded, lets out a sigh. Please don't throw a tantrum over this. If she's getting cheated on, it's because she lacks charm, you know. I'm at a loss for words. I can't keep up with these people who, as if nothing happened, not only go on with life, but also defend their cheating son. I thought I could hold on at least until Ava becomes an adult, but I've reached my limit. Let's get a divorce. I pulled out the pre-filled divorce application that I got when I was younger. Matthew looked at his parents as if he were a helpless puppy. His parents snorted. Matthew, we think it's fine to break up. You're talented and handsome. You'll have plenty of chances. Besides, the girl you're dating now is young, right? Expecting a son, perhaps? Women are just too chatty anyway. Matthew, seeing how the situation unfolds, laughs as if he just realized something. Exactly. She used to be so adorable, but now she treats me like I'm invisible. Starting a new family could be a way to reset things. You've got to be kidding me. It was Matthew who first started neglecting Ava. Matthew started finding it tedious to engage with Ava as she matured and lost some of her cuteness. It's absurd to think a father who only engages whimsically would be liked. Whatever affection I had left for Matthew dissipates rapidly. So you admitted to cheating. For the divorce, expect not just property division, but also a minimum of a few $1,000s in compensation. The moment I say this, Matthew's hand stops writing. Chloe grabs his hand. Why should our son pay that much when you're the cause of the affair? In our time, that wasn't a thing. If you have to pay that, don't agree to the divorce. Even if it's a messed up logic, it's 3 against 1 from an outsider's perspective. Matthew snickers at his own situation. That's right. If I don't sign here, we can't get divorced. If you want a divorce, you have to respect our opinions as well. What is he saying? Is this some kind of threat? I can't do this anymore. Everything about these people is just too much. My anger is about to explode. Fine. Instead of property and compensation, I'll just take what I bought. You can record this as a promise. Matthew and his parents visibly relax. Before I change my mind, Chloe prompts us to open the voice memo apps on our phones. I record exactly what I just said, and Matthew quickly agrees. Here's to new beginning. Matthew eagerly starts filling out the divorce application. Late that night, after the 3 of them went to bed, I sent Ava a message about our future plans. I sighed with relief when Ava's okay came back. Don't have any regrets now. Be prepared. Then, I hurriedly looked for a new place to live. The divorce papers are already filed. Of course, I won full custody of Ava. Today's the day Ava and I leave this house for good. I was busy making preparations for the move. My in-laws and Matthew have become more arrogant than ever. Day drinking, as usual. We need to get out of here ASAP. Ava has long lost patience with my in-laws and has already packed her stuff. I didn't have much to pack either. It figures. I'd hardly done any shopping for myself since getting married. It was almost time for the movers to arrive. It's good we don't have much stuff. Makes the move cheaper.
Chloe said, poking at our packed boxes. Ava and I exchanged glances and couldn't help but laugh.
What are you talking about? We ordered the largest truck available. Huh?
Ignoring the stunned Chloe, I walked over to the fridge and forcefully yanked out the plug.
Hey, what are you doing?
This is mine. I bought it. I began to unload the fridge, piling up all the food and beverages. Of course, the freezer wasn't an exception. The floor got a little wet, but I couldn't care less. Chloe grabbed my arm. I'm busy. I shrugged her off and went on to unplug all the appliances, carrying out whatever I could. Microwave, electric kettle, toaster, multi-cooker, washing machine, dishwasher, robot vacuum. I smiled at the shocked Matthew. Most of my paycheck went into these appliances to lighten your load around the house. Didn't you notice? That's right. Most of the appliances here I purchased. But not just that. Mom, I got it down! Ava came down holding a ceiling light. Thanks, please get the ones downstairs next. Ava grabbed a step stool and reached for the living room light. Matthew and Brian looked puzzled, probably because they'd been drinking. Oh well, let me explain. Also the air conditioners, lights, and large furniture around the house, I bought those, remember? Matthew seemed to snap back to reality.
Please stop. Just stop.
No way. I opened the closet, packed full of Chloe and Brian's clothes. I'm only taking what's mine. Without giving them a chance to respond, I grabbed their clothes and tossed them on the floor. High-end brands or not, I couldn't care less. I emptied the closet, bookshelf, and decorative shelf one by one. Oh right, my dresser. I pulled open the drawers to find makeup that probably belonged to Chloe. Such expensive stuff going to waste. I can't be bothered to take it out one by one. So be it. All right, here we go. Flipping over each drawer, just like that, they're empty. Phew, feels good. Chloe's face is pale as she scrambles to gather her makeup. Mom, the movers are here. Ava calls out to me loudly. Show them around. Tell them to start moving things. I hear Ava responding to the movers in an energetic voice. She's acting way more mature than the flustered adults in front of her. Sorry for the mess. Just go ahead and start moving stuff. The movers are clearly professionals. Our home empties at an incredible speed.
My.
What's left are a few pieces of furniture and a pile of abandoned food and entertainment items. Essentially, hardly anything essential to our daily life remains. Well then, see you later. After waving goodbye to the truck, Ava and I catch our breaths. I take an envelope from Ava and tell her to go to grandparents' house. Just then, a loud yell comes from behind. Startled, Ava shakes her shoulders. I urge her to go and then turn around. It's not just the alcohol. My in-laws and Matthew are red-faced and shaking with rage.
How could you do something so horrible?
I did exactly as I said I would. Now it's time for all of you to sort out your moving arrangements.
What?
All three shout in disbelief. Pathetic. Don't you remember? I own this property and this house. Matthew's face instantly turns pale.
You're not saying you sold this house too?
That's right. The house and land are already sold. Even though their fears were confirmed, far from celebrating, my in-laws look defeated. Well, of course they do.
This can't be allowed.
Look, I bought this house.
The loan payments? Also me. You had zero involvement. What makes you think you have any say in the sale? In fact, whether they lived with me or not, I had the authority to proceed with selling. I haven't violated any rules. Most of all, this house is practically vacant now. I doubt they could afford to restore the home to its original state, given their endless spending.
Don't worry. You have a lovely girlfriend, right? Why not go to live with her?
I can't help but laugh at Brian's desperate attempt. Feel free to try, but I wouldn't count on her.
What?
Shocked, eh? I wonder if that's what his expression means.
What do you mean?
After you left, I contacted Megan from your office. A horrible woman. Perfect for you. After I told her about your true nature and about Chloe and Brian, she said she never wants to see you again. At my words, the color drains from Matthew's face.
No way.
Matthew tries to make a call on his mobile phone, but the voice that comes through is mechanical, even though it's from the same woman. The number you have dialed is either out of service or switched off. Frustrated, Matthew and his parents don't know what to do next. I approach them and hand over an envelope I got from Ava. Here, this is from Ava.
What? You've got to be kidding.
Of course it's a letter from Ava. Her dad and grandparents are in a bind, aren't they? Matthew's face lights up instantly. Nobody mentioned a letter, but okay. They open the envelope and unfold the paper inside. The look on Matthew and his parents' face turns to shock.
What is this?
It's paperwork for child support. Drafted by a lawyer. It's a legally binding document.
You don't have to worry about splitting assets or paying alimony.
You get it now? I never made a decision about child support. Basically, it's the child's right to receive it. Matthew is speechless. You're Ava's dad. She said she's determined to go to a university she can brag about. You're paying for her tuition until she graduates. Matthew and his parents are utterly defeated. It's a little kindness I can offer. I put a pamphlet from a moving company in front of them and walk away. Fast forward a month. The money from the sale of the property was safely transferred to my bank account. I'm now living peacefully in my new place when messages begging for reconciliation start coming from Matthew. According to him, the affair got exposed at work because of the call I made. His mistress had to resign. Matthew was demoted and lost the reputation he had built up. Now he's living in a rundown company apartment in the middle of nowhere with his family. The home is full of discord, with Matthew and Brian who never lift a finger, and Chloe who always did as she pleased. Their place is filled with clutter and garbage, making living there nearly impossible. What goes around comes around, huh? I block him on all platforms, ensuring he can't reach me again. As for me, I'm back to full-time employment, and Ava is thriving. Our space is smaller but loaded with the latest appliances. With Ava's help, there's virtually no burden of housework. Ava is committed to both her studies and extracurricular activities. Even though I told her not to worry about what Chloe says, she insists on working hard for her future self. Matthew is seemingly living with his family. Maybe it's time for me to move back with my parents at the contract renewal. My parents adore Ava, their grandchild, and the feeling is mutual. Living together shouldn't be a problem. I also have the money from the settlement and property sale. Maybe I could renovate my parents' home to make it more comfortable for them and Ava. Opening my makeup drawer, I take out the new cosmetics Ava and I bought recently. I apply a calm-colored lipstick to my lips. Life lasts 100 years. My life is just starting. The me in the mirror looks happy. And yes, I'm going to keep being happy.
You're the one who should leave this house, Grandma.
There's no need to show compassion to Charlie, who mocks me, her mother-in-law, by calling me Grandma. Now that I know her true colors, I won't hold back. No, you're the one who should leave. My name is Vivi. I work as a medical social worker helping patients in need. Because my name is unique, patients remember me easily. If you're wealthy and get seriously ill, you can focus on treatment. But if you're poor and have a long-term illness, you suffer twice as much. My job is to support patients, ease their worries, and give them hope by telling them there are various ways to get through this. I was thinking of retiring soon as I've reached 60, but then my husband fell ill and passed away. After the funeral, the emptiness of living alone in a big house started to sink in. I decided to renovate the house. Once it was done, I invited my eldest son and his wife to discuss something. Living alone in such a big house feels lonely and wasteful. Would you like to move in with me? My indecisive son, Brian, looks at his wife Charlie's face before giving his opinion. Brian is 32 and Charlie is 24. Though not a huge age gap, Charlie clearly wears the pants in the relationship. I don't mind. A woman being in charge is better than a man acting all high and mighty.
If you're okay with it, we'd love to live with you.
Charlie is always cheerful and competent, and I think she's a good daughter-in-law.
I'll do the cleaning.
Really? That would be a big help. Charlie gives Brian a smile that's more like a glare, and he mumbles, "Oh, sure." I chuckle and say, "Don't worry about finances. I'm still working and have savings. I'm not asking you to take care of me." Brian looks relieved. I chuckle again, realizing that was his concern. Charlie works part-time at a grocery store, but also takes care of the house. She handles all the chores so I can focus on my job. I talk more with Charlie than with my reserved son Brian, and we've had a good mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship.
What does a medical social worker do?
It's important work. For example, a male patient had a serious illness requiring long-term treatment. He was told his bill was $100 and argued with the clerk, thinking it was a mistake. Charlie listens intently. When this burly, rough-looking man raised his voice, the young clerk got scared. That's when I step in. I calmly talk to him, listen to his concerns, and help him relax. He works for a shipping company, doing heavy labor, like unloading trucks. Doctors tell him to avoid physical work, but that's easier said than done.
So that's where you come in?
Exactly. I encourage him to have a positive mindset. If he's feeling hopeless, he won't come up with good solutions. There are various systems in place to help people in need.
Systems?
There are new programs, so not everyone knows about them. That's where experts like me come in, to guide people toward hope. He got better and is now working happily.
Whoa, Vivi, you're doing God's work.
That's an exaggeration. One day, Charlie bought a new refrigerator. When I saw the strong man delivering it, I was surprised. "Is that you, Danny?" "I thought it might be you, Vivi. Your name is so unique."
You know each other?
"I'm glad to see you're doing well."
"Vivi, you saved my life. I would never forget your kindness."
After Danny left, I say to Charlie, "Remember the burly guy I told you about?"
Oh, you mean the guy who'd look like a villain when he wore a suit?
Don't judge a book by its cover. He's a kind-hearted man.
A scary face but a gentle heart? Is that your type?
What are you talking about? Charlie is a good person, but she has her reckless moments. She's free-spirited and has many male friends. She stays out late, which I find concerning, but she's still in her 20s, so I let it slide. One night, she came home around 2 a.m., quite drunk, after attending a reunion. Brian didn't seem to mind, so I didn't say anything. Then one day, Brian said to me, "I'm worried Charlie might be cheating." Cheating? Do you have any proof? I saw her. She was at a restaurant with a young man I don't know, looking very close and happy. Did you ask her about it? I did, casually. She said he was a classmate from middle school. It's not ideal for a married woman to be alone with a man other than her husband, but I didn't want to ruin the good relationship I had with Charlie by being too nosy. 10 years have passed since my husband died, and I'm now 70. I've retired from work. Then tragedy struck. Brian, only 42, suddenly fell ill and passed away. After the funeral, when it was just Charlie and me, I said, "The greatest act of filial piety is not to die before your parents. That way, parents don't have to experience the irreversible tragedy of losing a child." Vivi. 2 months have passed since his death, and the sorrow hasn't faded. One day, Charlie called me.
Vivi, can I bring a friend over?
A friend? Sure. I assumed it would be a female friend, but it was a man. Long blonde hair, down to his shoulders, piercing eyes, a flashy leopard print shirt, and ripped jeans. Charlie introduced him with a smile.
This is Miles, a classmate from middle school.
Yo! That's his greeting for our first meeting? I've always told people not to judge others by their appearances, but this guy is pushing it. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I enjoy meeting Charlie in bed every night, too.
Idiot.
I've never been fond of people with no class. I hope to God he's just a friend and not her lover. After that, Charlie kept bringing Miles to the house. The first time was the only time she asked for permission. It's only been just 2 months since Brian passed away, so I can't believe this. I can't help but remember what Brian said about Charlie possibly cheating. Miles is 34, old enough to know better, but he stomps around and acts like he owns the place. I love this house. It's big and beautiful. I want to live here. What a terrifying thing to say. Miles is looking at the bookshelf. He sees the complete 60-volume comic series of The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, along with novels and related books. I like Romance of the Three Kingdoms too. My favorite general is Zhang Fei. You like Romance of the Three Kingdoms? I like Zhang Fei because he's hot-tempered, a heavy drinker, and quick to fight, just like me. I was glad to find a topic we could talk about, but imitating only the flaws of a general misses the point. Zhang Fei wasn't just brave, he was also a brilliant strategist. One of his plans succeeded so well that he broke through 14 enemy gates without shedding a drop of blood. Miles doesn't look convinced. If it's Zhang Fei, he'd break through those 14 gates with brute force. That doesn't sound like him. I guess we're not going to see eye to eye. What do you do for work, Miles? Work? I'm not working right now. Charlie quickly jumps in.
Miles is pursuing a career in music, so he's not exactly unemployed.
I'll fill a stadium someday. Just you watch. Caught off guard by Miles' sudden shout, I ask, "So do you play rock music?" Of course it's rock, but my band recently broke up. I'm 34 now, and my parents are telling me to get a stable job. But I'm not listening to such faint-hearted people.
But your dad supports your dream.
My dad gave me his debit card. I was shocked to see it already had $30,000 in the account. I wondered if his parents are wealthy. With $30,000, you could live quite comfortably. I'm not impressed with his personality or his first impression. If you don't manage that $30,000 carefully, it'll be gone before you know it. Even a part-time job that pays $100 a month would help, and you could supplement it with that $30,000. Wait a minute, old lady. I'm taken aback by being called an old lady. You're 70, so you're not an old lady. I guess you're a grandma. How I use my money is my business. Why are you acting so high and mighty? I'm trembling with anger. Why is he even here? What's even more shocking is that Charlie's laughing along with him.
Miles is a rocker to his core, Vivi. You can't expect him to be sensible.
Is that so? As I get up to leave the room, I hear Miles' voice from behind. Hey, are you forfeiting the match? Did this man change Charlie? No, that's not it. Charlie was probably always like this. I was fooled for so long. People are terrifying creatures. One night, I overhear them. I like this house. I wish the old lady would move out.
I have a good idea. We'll make her want to leave.
I wish I hadn't heard that. This is my house. I'm not going anywhere. One evening, Charlie comes back from the grocery store, and not just with Miles, but with a bunch of shady characters. They start a drinking party in the living room, making a lot of noise and laughing loudly. It's probably intentional. After the party, Charlie delivers the final blow.
Vivi, we're going to karaoke now. Clean this up for us.
Charlie points at the messy table and laughs. So it's come to this. As Charlie and her friends leave the house, the words I should have kept inside slip out of my mouth. I never thought you would be so deceitful, Charlie. You'll regret betraying me. I've reached my breaking point. The blatant harassment from Charlie and Miles continues. They're probably waiting for me to leave on my own, but that's not going to happen. Their plan is transparent and pathetic. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, that's my motto. Physical fights are for children. Using wisdom and non-violence is how adults fight. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms is a practical guide to strategy that still applies today. Now's the time to use strategy to drive away my enemies, and my spirit is ignited. I'll show these 30-somethings how vibrant today's 70-year-olds can be. One Sunday, after Miles comes over, I say to both of them, Charlie, I have something important to discuss. Miles, you should listen too.
Perfect timing. I have something to talk about as well.
We sit across the table from each other. Miles sits arrogantly. Charlie says with a smile,
Vivi, you're so clueless. Time to wake up. Please leave this house.
What are you talking about? This is my house. If you don't want to live with me, you should leave.
But renting an apartment is expensive. We can live here without paying rent.
Rent-free's the best. Even without a mortgage, money keeps going out for taxes, utilities, and food. But rent is the biggest expense.
So, Vivi, since you're rich with lots of savings, please give this house to us poor young people. We'll be grateful.
I'm utterly disgusted by their audacity. I was shocked to the core. Charlie, with such a wicked heart, you'll be abandoned by heaven.
Heaven? Have you reached enlightenment? You must be close to passing away.
My condolences. Charlie puts her hands together in a mocking prayer, and Miles does the same. My condolences. If they're going to mock me like this, I'm ready to take action. The one who should leave is you.
You're the one who's leaving, Grandma.
Even if she's my daughter-in-law, there's no need to show compassion to Charlie, who mocks me as a grandma. Now that I know her true colors, I won't hold back. No, you're the one who's leaving. Just then, the doorbell rings. Ah, they're here. I said and head to the entrance. Danny appears in the living room, not in his work clothes, but in an expensive-looking suit, without a tie, exuding authority. Charlie tilts her head and asks,
A mover?
Miles, who had been acting so arrogantly, turns pale and sits back down. Oh, why, Dad?
Dad?
Danny glares at Miles, his face full of anger. I heard everything from Vivi. How dare you mess with the person who saved my life? I'll never forgive you. It's not like that. If this table weren't in someone else's house, I'd have already flipped it. Miles, trembling with fear, asks in a low voice, What do you mean by flipped? Shut up. I'm sorry. This time, Danny glares at Charlie and speaks in a low voice. Do you think you can just mess around with people?
I'm not messing around.
Charlie also slumps down, looking small. I asked if you're messing around.
I said I'm not.
This woman is a lifesaver for me. If it weren't for her encouragement, I wouldn't be who I am today. If you mess with her, I'll never forgive you. Remember that.
Yes, sir.
Danny then glares at Miles. You can't act like this in someone else's house. Miles, let's go. Wait, please. Nope, I'm not waiting. Miles, who has lost all color, slowly stands up and suddenly dashes out. Stop right there. Danny also runs after him. I sternly say to Charlie, who's sitting down, Charlie, leave this house today.
Today? Wait, please.
I'm not waiting. Charlie kneels down and clasps her hands together. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. There's no way I can forgive you. You intentionally harassed me to kick me out of the house. Leave now.
I'm sorry, Vivi. Please forgive me. I beg you.
Charlie grabs my hands, but I push her away. There are things that can be forgiven with an apology, and things that can't. What you did can't be forgiven no matter how much you apologize. Leave now. Charlie's face turns red. She bites her lip and adopts a solemn attitude.
Vivi.
I'm just a grandma, right?
I take it back. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Words once spoken can't be taken back, and they probably reflect your true feelings. Charlie stands up, approaches me, and apologizes deeply again.
I have no money, so if you tell me to leave right now, I'll be in trouble. Please give me one more chance. I'll do it right.
You're probably laughing inside, aren't you?
Absolutely not. That's mean. I'm not laughing. So please spare me this time.
No, leave today. Perhaps sensing my resolve, Charlie quietly stands up and leaves the house with a look of despair. Some men might forgive a cute apology, but I'm not that soft. The next day, I get a call from Charlie. I thought about ignoring it, but I answer. Hello?
Vivi.
Can you stop calling me that? We're strangers now.
I have no intention of calling you anything other than Vivi.
Who was it that called me Grandma? Ignoring my sarcasm, Charlie quickly says,
Please help me, Vivi. Miles's friends are blaming me, saying it's my fault and they're targeting me.
It's your fault? Sounds about right.
Vivi, I'm really in a desperate situation. Please help me.
How is a 70-year-old grandma supposed to help you from scary people? Even as I keep being sarcastic, Charlie doesn't get angry but becomes more confused.
They're dangerous people, you understand, right?
I'm busy, so I'm hanging up.
Wait, please wait, Vivi. Lend me some money. I promise I'll pay you back.
I'm flabbergasted. I don't have a single penny to give you.
I want to run away, but I don't have the money for transportation. It's a once-in-a-lifetime request, Vivi.
I'm a 70-year-old grandma living on a pension. I don't have the luxury to give money to a stranger.
But you said you have savings.
Goodbye.
Wait.
I coldly hang up the phone. Being chased by dangerous people? This isn't a TV show or a movie. She's probably making up stories because she knows I won't lend her money. It's like a specialized scam. But something feels off. What if she's actually in danger? She's a young woman and I can't help but worry. If she gets caught, it's over for her. She must be terrified. Charlie did something unforgivable, but that doesn't mean I wish her ill. I can't be completely heartless. Then the phone rings again.
This is my last request, Vivi. Please help me.
Charlie?
Yes.
Your only option is to seek help from the police.
The police?
Don't call me again. You're the one who cut ties.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Her voice trembles as she hangs up. It all feels like an act. Building trust is hard and takes time. Like constructing a building, but it only takes a second to lose trust. That night, I get a call from the police and my heart races. Police? Is Charlie your daughter-in-law? Yes, what about it? She's seeking protection from us. She says you kicked her out. Is that true? I feel relieved. She seems to be safe. I've completely cut ties with her. Even if she has nowhere to live, there's nothing I can do. Can't you let her stay until she finds a new place? Absolutely not. I see. I don't mince words. My former daughter-in-law did something that bad. I decide to sell the house and move to an apartment. It's too big for one person, and cleaning is a hassle. Plus, there's a chance she might come back asking for help. Now that I know her true nature, I can't live with her, even if she apologizes tearfully. It's just not possible. There's also the issue of her blaming me for her problems. I don't want to be blamed for her deteriorating condition. I hurriedly packed my bags. Danny came to help me move. I'm really sorry for the trouble my son caused you last time. It's not your fault, Danny. At 34, he's a grown man. I sent him to the hospital, just so you know. What? I'm kidding, just kidding. The fact that it doesn't sound like a joke is scary. Once the move was complete and the heavy furniture was set up, all thanks to Denny, I felt relieved.
Call me any time you need some muscle. I'll be there in a flash. I may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I've got plenty of brawn. All my smarts went into my muscles. Ha ha ha.
Thank you, Danny. I won't hesitate to call you when the time comes. Who would have thought Danny and Miles were father and son? It's a small world, but thanks to that, I was able to counterattack. I lost my husband, my beloved son, and now the last tie to my daughter-in-law is severed. But I don't feel particularly lonely. Thanks to my outgoing nature, I quickly became friends with the neighbors. A cheerful greeting is the first step to friendship. Looking back on the tumultuous past few weeks, I'm glad I caught on to Charlie's wickedness early on. I was on the verge of losing my home. People can be truly frightening. Now I'm living a luxurious and free life, listening to my favorite music, savoring my favorite coffee, and enjoying my favorite books. My days are comfortable and fulfilling. I'm glad I saved diligently.
What's the idea of leaving our newborn baby to my sister every day? I got a call from my husband while he was at work. I couldn't help but be surprised at the anger in his usually mild-mannered husband's voice. I quickly clarified the situation to clear up the misunderstanding. Huh? Our daughter is sleeping at home. Huh? My husband raised his voice in surprise. One question led to another, and we both were left puzzled. I'll ask my sister-in-law for the truth. I decided to contact my sister-in-law, and a shocking truth was revealed. My name is Linda. I've been married for 3 years to my husband, Bob, who is 1 year older. We were recently blessed with our first child. Our daughter's name is Hannah. Hannah is so adorable, but I'm having a tough time as a first-time mom. Since my parents live far away, I didn't have the option of returning home for childbirth. So, since I was discharged from the hospital, I've been a one-woman show during the day. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that I've managed to get by thanks to Bob, who is very attentive to Hannah. Even when he's tired from work, he never complains, whether Hannah is having trouble falling asleep or waking up crying in the middle of the night. I think the fact that Bob is such a mild-mannered person allows me to deal with Hannah with hardly any stress. I was truly grateful for his presence. So, I was taken aback by this sudden call from him, and especially by the anger in his voice. Linda, I just got a call from Mom. What the heck is going on? Huh? Your mom? What do you mean? What's the idea behind leaving your newborn with Marissa every day? Mom has a bad back, and apparently Marissa has been taking care of everything all by herself. What? I couldn't keep up with the sudden introduction of my sister-in-law and the word newborn. Marissa is my sister-in-law, Bob's sister. She lives about a 15-minute walk away at her parents' house, where she lives with them. She's flexible because she works from home and takes care of her mother. My husband continued his criticism. How can you just leave a baby who's only 3 weeks old? I'd be too worried to do that. Marissa has never taken care of a baby. I understand that you're exhausted after giving birth, but at least consult with me before you leave her with Marissa. His anguished cry made me realize that this was no ordinary situation. Hold on, I have no idea what you're talking about. Marissa is taking care of a newborn? And why did your mom call you? Why do I need to consult with you? What do you mean, why? You've been leaving Hannah with Marissa, haven't you? It's been almost 2 weeks. Marissa hasn't complained because she doesn't want to ruin her relationship with you, but Mom couldn't stand it and called me. I was shocked at Bob's words. It was a story I had no memory of, because my daughter is right in front of me right now. I had a lot of questions, but I felt it was more important to clear up the misunderstanding first, so I responded immediately. Huh? Our daughter is sleeping at home. She's right in front of me now. Huh? Bob's voice, which had been filled with surprise until a moment ago, raised in astonishment again. What do you mean? I'm as baffled as you are. In fact, I was told it's best not to take newborns out too much, so I haven't really been anywhere besides medical checkups. So, I haven't even been to your family home, and I haven't seen Marissa since she came to visit us after the birth. Huh? Then whose baby is Marissa looking after? I wish I knew. Why would Marissa lie about taking care of my baby? One question just seemed to lead to another. As we both scratched our heads, the chime announcing the end of the lunch break rang over the phone. When I heard the chime, I made a decision. I'm going to reach out to Marissa. I want to understand why she might lie. If she's mistaken and thinks she's taking care of her Hannah, that's a real problem. I'll call Mom too, and, Bob paused before apologizing. Sorry for doubting you. I was just so worried about Hannah. It's okay, you are worried for Hannah, right? Besides, when I told you she's right here, you didn't question it, you believed me. After ending the call, I immediately dialed my sister-in-law's number. Marissa, it's been a while. Do you have a minute? There's something I want to ask. Linda, I have something to say too. Bob and Marissa are close in age. That's why Marissa, despite my sister-in-law, is the same age as me. Marissa and I have always gotten along well since I was dating Bob. We even used to go out together. So I couldn't help but wonder why she hadn't mentioned anything about the situation to me. I couldn't understand why she would lie like that. Well, this is a good time. I just heard from Bob, Marissa. What do you mean you're looking after Hannah? I've never left Hannah with anyone. Huh? Following Marissa's surprised voice, I could hear a baby crying. Apparently, she is indeed caring for a baby. Listening to Marissa's voice, I had a hunch. Marissa wasn't lying. She truly believed she was caring for Hannah. To clear up Marissa's misunderstanding, I started to explain the situation. Hannah's right here with me, sleeping soundly. I really don't understand what's going on, but how did you end up with a baby, Marissa? And why did you think the baby was Hannah? Marissa responded to my question. Last week, Dad just dropped a baby off with me. He said Linda seems to be having a tough time on her own, so you should help her with her baby. My father-in-law? I couldn't help but raise my voice at this astonishing revelation. Then Marissa dropped another bombshell. Yeah, I was so scared because I've never cared for a baby. I hadn't heard anything from you, Linda, and when I thought about calling you, Dad said, if you call Linda, she'll just get worked up. Don't you have any consideration for your sister-in-law? I also have a job to do even when I'm home. It seemed that all of this started with my father-in-law's lie, but it wasn't clear who the child my sister-in-law was caring for was. I thought asking my father-in-law would clear things up, so I asked Marissa if he was home. However, it seems he's out right now. Lately, he comes back home in the late evening, picks up the child she's been looking after, saying he's going to return her to Linda, and then leaves again. And apparently, he comes back in about 20 to 30 minutes. Frustrated that my father-in-law was using me and my daughter to lie, I felt like confronting him directly. I get it, I'll need to talk with Bob, but we might come over tonight, I said and hung up the phone. I emailed my husband about what I heard from his sister. I think it's better to ask Dad directly, was the reply, so when Bob got home, we headed over to my in-laws. On the way, Bob shared the conversation he had with his mother. Mom was pretty upset too. To find out that the child she thought was her grandchild wasn't, that's a big shock, ain't it? I didn't think Hannah's first meeting with everyone would be like this. It's complicated. His mother had a bad back, so she hasn't met our daughter yet. I was hoping to introduce Hannah as soon as she was ready to go out after a month. But instead, I'm upset that we're having to introduce her during such a mess. When we arrived at my in-laws, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were there, both looking bewildered. As we came in, Marissa opened her mouth. Bob, Linda, Dad said he was going to return the child we've been looking after, but he hasn't come back yet. I understand. Mom, despite the circumstances, this is our daughter, Hannah. Bob introduced our daughter, and I moved Hannah closer to my mother-in-law. Seeing Hannah, my mother-in-law's face softened. She's adorable. She looks just like Bob when he was born. I'm so glad to finally meet her. And Linda, you've done so well. I'm sorry you've been caught up in all this. It's okay. I'm just as confused as everyone else. As I said that, Marissa continued. I don't understand it either. Who is this child Dad has been looking after? I don't know why he's lying, and I've been working so hard thinking that child was Hannah. He should consider how I feel too. Like me, Marissa seemed frustrated with our father-in-law. Trying to lighten the mood, Bob interjected. Before that, Marissa, you've met Hannah. You should have noticed it's a different baby. Well, don't all babies look similar? I thought I felt something odd, but I thought maybe their faces change over a few days. Marissa hastily began to defend herself. That's when our father-in-law came back. I'm back. Wait, why are Bob and Linda here? From our father-in-law's panic, it was clear this whole thing was his lie. The rest of us seemed to agree, and we all gave him hard stares. Unable to stand the tension, our father-in-law started to stumble over his words. Ah, Linda, it's been a while. What brings you here? Did you leave something here? Marissa, what are you doing? I told you to check for forgotten items. I was furious at our father-in-law for using me and my daughter's names to lie and then blaming Marissa. I subconsciously gripped my daughter tighter. Both my husband and my sister-in-law seemed to feel the same way, their fists shaking with tension. The first to speak was me. Dad, are you seriously saying that? Don't you think it's a bit too shoddy, even for you? What do you mean? My father-in-law was taken aback by the anger in my voice. That's when my husband and sister-in-law joined in. Dad, explain yourself. Linda has never babysat Hannah. Why would you lie like that? There must be a reason for someone to babysit a stranger's newborn, right? That's right. You tricked me into babysitting. Who is that child? I'm scared even if it's my brother's child, let alone a stranger's. I won't do it again. Do you have any idea how much this has set back my work? With the two of them firing off at high speed, our father-in-law was at a loss for words. While the three of us were glaring at him, wanting to know the truth, my mother-in-law was different. She turned pale, muttering, "No way, you're not still involved with her." At my mother-in-law's words, my husband, sister-in-law, and I were stunned. My father-in-law was breaking out in a cold sweat. What do you mean? Even now, he was trying to play dumb, but my usually gentle husband had had enough. Dad, cut the crap. You've been playing dumb this whole time. You think you can get away with this? We know you've been lying about everything. Just tell the truth. Wait, Bob, calm down. Dad, you've been using Linda and Hannah to cover up your lies, and you owe Marissa an apology. Taking care of a newborn is a big responsibility, even if it's your own child. Imagine how stressful it must have been for Marissa, who's never even raised a child before. Once he started, my husband couldn't stop. Despite everything our father-in-law was saying, my husband didn't let up. Perhaps realizing he couldn't avoid it any longer, my father-in-law sighed softly, and then he confessed to the unbelievable truth. That child is mine. At our father-in-law's words, my husband lost all of his momentum, his mouth hanging open in shock. Marissa and I were also stunned into silence. The one who broke the silence was my mother-in-law. Her voice was trembling and her eyes were wet. I knew it, you're still involved with her. I was a fool to forgive you back then. Back then? My husband asked, confused. In response to his question, our father-in-law's face turned even paler. Ignoring him, my mother-in-law started explaining. He had an affair. It was around the time you two were getting married, so about 3 years ago? He promised me he would never do it again, so I forgave him. But now, that's why I thought Hannah looked a bit like Bob. She's his blood, after all. I thought she was my real grandchild. Unable to hold back any longer, my mother-in-law started to cry. Seeing her like this, I could feel my anger towards my father-in-law rising. My husband regained his momentum and started to lash out at our father-in-law. You're the worst, Dad. You didn't just lie to us, you betrayed Mom twice. How could you do such a thing? I can't believe that a person like you is our father. Bob's shout was followed by Marissa. What do you mean by my child? Are you kidding me? You had a child with your mistress and left it with me? I can't believe it. How can you calmly do such a thing? It's too disgusting. I don't want to see your face ever again. Despite the harsh words from his own children, father-in-law just chuckled and said, Calm down. There's nothing we can do about what's already happened. The mistress didn't want to marry me or anything like that. She just didn't have any money, so she had to work. In the meantime, I had to take care of the child. I couldn't bear the sight of my father-in-law laughing and saying these words. Stop it, you worthless man. What you did isn't a laughing matter. A person has been born. Do you understand the gravity of that at your age? When I, who had been silent all along, raised my voice, my father-in-law seemed to lose his footing and fell on his rear end right there, but no one offered to help. Instead, Bob and Marissa started hurling insults. You shitty old man, you're no longer our father. I can't stand you physically. I don't want to see your face ever again. Even when confronted by their words, my father-in-law still tried to brush it off, saying, Don't say things like that. Seeing this, my mother-in-law sighed dramatically and glared at my father-in-law. I don't have the confidence to keep up with someone like you anymore. Let's get divorced. Wait, didn't you forgive me last time? My father-in-law's artificial smile faded and his face sagged with wrinkles. The careless demeanor from earlier disappeared and he suddenly became serious. Sure, I made a mistake by cheating, but if letting off steam outside makes our home peaceful, isn't that a good thing? Besides, how are you going to survive without me? You've always been a housewife. You probably don't have any money, right? As my father-in-law clung to my mother-in-law's feet and said this, I watched him with cold eyes. When I glanced over, my husband and sister-in-law were also giving my father-in-law the same look. Everyone in the room was fed up with my father-in-law. My sister-in-law shouted out with anger. I'll take care of Mom, so we'll be fine without you. How are you planning to live? You've always relied on Mom for everything from meals to laundry. Are you sure you'll be okay on your own now? Marissa's words clearly upset my father-in-law. He looked at my mother-in-law with pleading eyes. You wouldn't abandon me, would you? We've been together for decades. You can't imagine life without me, can you? However, my father-in-law's hopes were quickly dashed. My mother-in-law shook off his arm that was clinging to her leg. Stop joking. How much do you need to belittle people to be satisfied? Who do you think wants to be with a cheater? I'm going to divorce you right now. If you like her so much, why don't you go be with your mistress? What? Wait, let's talk. We can work it out. That woman was just a fling. The only one I love is you. My father-in-law, clinging to my mother-in-law, is once again the target of my sister-in-law's angry voice. Enough! Talking to someone who has no intention of reflecting on their actions is pointless. We're leaving this place soon. Of course, Mom is coming with us. Until we're gone, Dad, you better not come home. I never want to see your face again. Now scram! With that, Marissa tries to forcefully usher my father-in-law outside. Even then, my father-in-law didn't budge, so ultimately, Bob had to physically drag him out. Please wait. Give me another chance. Just one more. My father-in-law was shouting this until the end, but no one paid any attention. Afterwards, as Marissa had predicted, my father-in-law's life became a mess, unable to do even basic chores. Unable to endure living in his increasingly cluttered and dirty house, he tried to rely on his mistress, but it seemed she turned him away at the door. The mistress apparently has no intention of marrying my father-in-law either. Since there was no one left to look after the children, the mistress became unable to go to work, and with no income, she started demanding that my father-in-law compensate for the alimony. Currently, they are even going to court to dispute matters such as child support. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law and mother-in-law moved to an apartment not far from our house. As more than a month has passed since the birth, I've started visiting them with Hannah more frequently. I've continued my friendly relationship with Marissa as if nothing has changed, and my relationship with my mother-in-law is also good. From now on, I plan to do my best to raise my daughter with the help of my husband, my sister-in-law, and my mother-in-law.